I've been buying televisions for over 30 years now, and I remember when choosing a TV was straightforward. You walked into a store, looked at the picture quality, checked the price tag, and made your decision. These days, though, something's changed. I recently watched a blind test where regular people, not tech reviewers, just everyday viewers, preferred a $399 television over a $2,500 premium model for most of what they actually watch. That made me stop and think about everything we've been told about needing the most expensive technology to get a good picture. What if the rules have changed and nobody bothered to tell us? Before we dig into this, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. It helps more people find this kind of practical information. And I'm genuinely curious, what television are you using right now, and what's your biggest frustration with it? Is it the picture quality in a bright room, the confusing settings, the smart features that don't work quite right? Leave a comment below because I read every single one, and your experiences help shape what I cover next. The test that changed my perspective. Let me tell you about this blind test because it revealed something important about how we've been thinking about televisions. The setup was simple and honest. 12 to 15 regular people, not industry experts, just everyday viewers, sitting about 8 to 10 feet away from two screens in a room with normal lighting. Windows open, lamps on, the kind of environment where most of us actually watch television. They weren't in some dark home theater with blackout curtains. This was real life. The organizers showed the same content on both screens: NFL games, CNN news broadcasts, YouTube videos, and some darker movie scenes from films like Batman. Nobody knew which screen was which. They just labeled them Screen A and Screen B. After each clip, people simply answered which one looked better to them overall. No technical jargon, no prompting, just their honest preference based on what their eyes told them. Here's where it gets interesting. For sports content, 10 out of 12 people preferred Screen A. The greens on the football field looked more vivid, the action felt smoother, and several people said it felt like watching a live game rather than a recording. For news and talk shows, 9 out of 12 picked Screen A again. They mentioned that text appeared sharper, faces looked brighter and more natural in the daylight scenes, and nothing felt washed out the way it sometimes does on screens that struggle with bright content. When they moved to streaming content in YouTube videos, 8 out of 12 still preferred Screen A. People noted that it seemed to handle compression better, hiding those blocky artifacts you sometimes see in lower quality streams, and the colors felt more engaging without being cartoonish. The only category where preferences flipped was dark movie content. There, 8 out of 12 preferred Screen B, praising the depth and shadows and the complete absence of any glow around bright objects in dark scenes. The big reveal. Then came the moment that made everyone reconsider what they thought they knew. Screen A, which won 77% of the time overall, was the TCL 55C6K, a $399 budget television using something called QD Mini LED technology. Screen B, which only won 23% of the time, was the LG 65-inch G3 OLED, retailing for $2,499. That's more than 6 times the price. Now, I've been around long enough to know that price doesn't always equal quality, but this gap surprised even me. People in the test were genuinely shocked when they found out which screen they'd been preferring. One person said, "I honestly didn't expect the cheap one to win most of those rounds." Another mentioned, "I was sure the one I liked for sports had to be the expensive one." Understanding what actually happened. This isn't about one technology being universally better than another. It's about understanding what works best for how you actually use your television. The TCL model has a 55-inch screen with something called quantum dot mini LED backlighting. Without getting too technical, it has 512 separate dimming zones and can reach peak brightness levels between 2,000 and 2,500 nits. That's the measurement of how bright a screen can get. The LG OLED, meanwhile, reaches about 1,200 to 1,500 nits, and that's with something called ABL, automatic brightness limiting, which dims the screen when too much of the picture is bright to protect the panel. In a room with normal lighting, that brightness difference matters enormously. When sunlight is streaming through your windows or you have lamps on in the evening, a brighter screen can maintain its punch and vibrancy. It doesn't get washed out. The quantum dots in the TCL also produce very saturated colors, maybe slightly more vivid than perfect accuracy requires, but that extra pop makes content feel more engaging to most people's eyes. The OLED has its own considerable strengths. It produces perfect blacks because each pixel can turn completely off. There's no blooming or glow around bright objects and dark scenes. The contrast is technically infinite. For watching movies in a dark room, especially films with a lot of shadow detail, OLED technology is genuinely spectacular. But here's the thing, how often do most of us watch television in complete darkness? Real-world usage matters more than specs. I think back to how my parents used their television, how my neighbors use theirs, how I use mine most of the time. It's daytime news while making breakfast. It's sports on weekend afternoons with the curtains open. It's streaming shows in the evening with a couple of lamps on. Very rarely is it a darkened home theater experience. For that typical usage pattern, the advantages of OLED, those perfect blacks and infinite contrast, don't outweigh the disadvantages of lower brightness and the risk of burn-in if you watch a lot of content with static logos. The TCL also handles the kind of content most people actually watch quite well. YouTube videos aren't always the highest quality. Cable news broadcasts can have compression artifacts. Streaming services adjust quality based on your bandwidth. The mini-LED technology, with its local dimming zones, seems to soften some of those imperfections rather than highlighting them. OLED panels, being so precise and accurate, can sometimes reveal every flaw in less than perfect source material. There's also the longevity question. LED backlights typically last 50,000 hours or more without degradation. You can leave cable news on all day, watch sports constantly, display video game HUDs with static elements, and not worry about permanent image retention. OLED panels have improved dramatically over the years, but burn-in remains a real consideration if you watch a lot of content with persistent logos or use the TV as a computer monitor. The alternative options worth considering. The TCL isn't the only budget option delivering impressive performance. The Hisense FY55U6N, usually priced around $450, offers similar mini-LED technology with somewhere between 100 and 240 dimming zones. It reaches lower peak brightness than the TCL, between 600 and 1500 nits depending on the mode, but still performs well in bright rooms. It includes Filmmaker mode, which automatically adjusts settings to match the director's intent, and has strong gaming features with input lag under 10 milliseconds. There are situations where I'd still recommend OLED technology despite the higher price. If you have a dedicated home theater room with controlled lighting, if you watch a lot of cinematically dark content, if you're sensitive to the subtle motion handling differences, or if you simply want the most accurate color reproduction available, OLED delivers something special. The LG G3 specifically has beautiful design, excellent processing, and WebOS is genuinely one of the better smart TV platforms, with 5 years of promised updates. What the specifications actually mean. Let me walk through some of the technical details in a way that connects to real viewing experience. The TCL has a 144 Hz variable refresh rate with what they call 240 motion rate. In practical terms, that means sports and action movies look smooth without the soap opera effect that higher frame rate processing sometimes creates. The Hisense offers similar gaming-focused features with its Game Mode Pro. The LG provides native 120 Hz refresh with full support for Dolby Vision gaming, which is currently the premium standard. For HDR formats, all three support Dolby Vision IQ, which adjusts the HDR picture based on ambient light in your room. They also support HDR10+ and HLG for broadcast HDR. The color gamut specifications tell you how much of the color spectrum the TV can reproduce. The TCL hits 93% of the DCI P3 color space used in cinema. The Hisense reaches about 90%. The LG covers the full 100%, which matters if you're calibrating for professional color work or you're a serious enthusiast who can perceive those subtle differences. The smart platforms differ more than you might expect. The TCL runs Google TV, which gives you access to over 700,000 apps and has excellent voice control integration if you use Google Home or Assistant. The Hisense uses Vida U 7.6, which is faster and simpler but has a smaller app selection. The LG's WebOS remains one of the most polished interfaces, with AI-enhanced picture processing that learns your preferences over time. Making your decision with confidence.
If you're considering one of these televisions, here's what I'd suggest based on 3 decades of buying electronics. First, think honestly about your viewing environment. Measure the ambient light in your room at different times of day. If you have large windows and watch TV primarily during daylight hours or with lights on, brightness capabilities matter more than perfect blacks. Second, consider what you actually watch. If it's 75% sports, news, and streaming content, you're in the category where these blind test results apply directly to you. Third, visit a store if you can, but understand that showroom conditions don't match your home. Store displays are usually set to maximum brightness in torch mode, which isn't how you'd use the TV at home. They're also in extremely bright retail environments. Ask if you can see the TVs with more realistic settings, or better yet, check the return policy. Most major retailers give you at least 2 weeks. Buy the TV, set it up in your actual room, watch your actual content, and decide based on your own eyes rather than specifications or reviews. Fourth, don't dismiss the budget options because of the price tag. The technology has genuinely improved. Mini LED backlighting 5 years ago had far fewer dimming zones and created noticeable blooming. Current implementations, even in budget models, control the backlight much more precisely. Quantum dot color filters used to be exclusive to premium sets. Now they're appearing in televisions under $500. The performance gap between budget and premium has narrowed considerably for typical viewing conditions.
The bigger picture about technology and value. This blind test results represents something larger happening in consumer electronics. For years, we've been told that we need to buy the most expensive technology to get good performance. Sometimes that's true. There's no budget substitute for a truly high-end computer processor or a professional camera sensor. But in televisions, the relationship between price and everyday viewing satisfaction has become much more complex. Manufacturing has improved to the point where even budget brands are using sophisticated technologies. Competition has driven innovation down the price ladder faster than most people realize. And honestly, the human eye has limits. We can perceive perfect blacks in a dark room, but in a bright living room, that capability doesn't matter as much as having enough brightness to overcome ambient light. I remember when a good television cost what would be $3,000 or $4,000 in today's money and lasted 15 years. The picture wasn't as good as anything we have now, but it was reliable and simple. Modern TVs are more complex. They're essentially computers running operating systems that need updates. They have more that can go wrong, but they also deliver picture quality that would have seemed impossible 30 years ago, and they're doing it at prices that, adjusted for inflation, are actually lower than what we paid decades ago. Practical considerations before you buy. Check the actual specifications rather than marketing terms. Motion rate and true motion and other branded terms don't have industry standards. One company's 240 motion rate might be similar to another's 120 Hz with processing. Look for the native refresh rate, which is usually 60 Hz or 120 Hz. For input lag, if you game, anything under 20 milliseconds is acceptable, and under 10 is excellent. For number of HDMI 2.1 ports, make sure you have enough for your devices. Gaming consoles, soundbars, and streaming devices add up quickly. Consider the audio system as well. The TCL has Onkyo-branded 2.1 channel audio with 40 watts and Dolby Atmos support, which is decent but not exceptional. The Hisense bumps that to 60 watts with a dedicated subwoofer. The LG offers 4.2 channel audio with 60 watts and virtual 9.1.2 upmixing, which is genuinely impressive for built-in speakers. Still, most people end up adding a soundbar eventually, so don't let audio be the deciding factor unless you're certain you won't upgrade it. Look at the warranty and support options. Budget brands have sometimes struggled with customer service. Read recent reviews specifically about warranty claims and technical support experiences. Consider whether paying more for a brand with better support infrastructure matters to you. In my experience, the reliability differences aren't as significant as they used to be, but support quality still varies. Where to find more information? I've put together some additional resources in the description below, including links to current pricing and more detailed specification comparisons.
The prices I've mentioned are based on early 2026 availability, but they fluctuate with sales and regional differences. If you're shopping internationally, factor in import duties and warranty coverage that might not extend to your region. Check if the link in description below still works to compare prices, because these models may get updated or replaced during the year. For those of you who want to see the actual blind test footage or more detailed technical measurements, there are several YouTube channels that have conducted similar comparisons. I'm not affiliated with any of them, but they provide good visual evidence of what I've described here. Search for Mini LED versus OLED blind test, and you'll find multiple examples from 2025 and early 2026. The most important thing I want you to take away from this is simple. Trust your own eyes in your own environment more than any specification sheet or review. The television that tests best in a professional review might not be the one that makes you happiest in your living room. The most expensive option isn't automatically the best choice for your specific situation, and sometimes a $399 television really can deliver a better everyday viewing experience than one costing 6 times as much. Not because the expensive one is bad, but because the affordable one is well matched to how most people actually use their TVs. Technology has reached a point where good enough has gotten very good indeed. That doesn't mean premium options don't have value. They absolutely do for the right person and the right use case. But it does mean you have genuine choices now, and you don't have to spend a fortune to get excellent picture quality for sports, news, and streaming in a normally lit room. Make your decision based on your needs, your budget, and your actual viewing habits, not on assumptions about what expensive must mean. Check the link in the description for current pricing and more details on these models. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.